small show that you may recognize. Jennifer Marshall will be joining us shortly, but let's just take a look at the small show you might have seen her on if you have binge. I can speak English today, I promise you. If you've been binge watching, like all of us have, TV, you might have noticed our guest.
Hey guys, we're home. Hey guys, we're home. Guys? Hello? Max?
Why don't you tell us?
Because I don't know.
We can't find Maxine.
And our window's open.
I'm sorry, Susan.
It's okay, Neil.
Oh, there we go. I'm doing technology, and it's not good that I'm the one doing it. But our first is none other than Jennifer Marshall from the United States Navy. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Hi,
Hello.
Eric. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. I hope you didn't mind the intro.
No, not at all.
I don't include that in the show today. And she's the executive producer, so I don't argue with my producer. Yes, my producer's 15, so.
You get them started early.
You do, absolutely, right? You know, because she cursed herself when they told me about their homeschooling, and I know you have kids in the home, so you'll understand. Lots of Zoom calls, which was funny. My 13-year-old, he's downstairs at lunch, and he's like, man, I feel my life is just a bunch of Zoom calls back to back. And we laughed because I was like, okay, now it's like adult life here. All four of us say the same thing about
That's our normal life.
It's our normal life. But my 15-year-old, she was like, we should start a show and we should do it. But then she's like, I only have like 30 minutes today. And then my son this morning, I was walking by his door and I heard he's like, all I have to do today is read for 20 minutes. That's my assignment. Read for 20 minutes and go outside. Okay, that's what I'm doing. So literally this homeschooling thing, I don't know. I think they're still figuring it out, but it seems pretty lax. I mean, everybody gets an A long as you show up. It's pass or fail, no grades. I mean, it's good. I mean,
we definitely pack our son's schedules. They have maybe an hour worth of homework, and we're like, nope, time to learn, time to read, time to explore.
I love it. So how have you guys been before we jump into interview stuff? I mean, how's everything good on?
It's been good. It's just it's difficult because when you live in a city, you're used to being around other people, and you're used to, everywhere you go is people. So to be sequestered in the house, it's kind of odd. But you know what? We're warm, we're safe, we're happy, we're fed. So we're fine.
Well, that is good. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, that's good. I'm glad. I want everybody safe. It's scary.
Yes.
This coronavirus, and I know we're both vets. So this isn't, I mean, we're used to adapt and overcome and the, planning for what we don't know, mass chaos while everyone else is around on fire. I always feel like Kevin Bacon from Animal House, right? Stay calm. Everything is fine.
We're also used to hurry up and wait.
Everybody else was running around like the sky was falling.
Right. And we are experts at hurry up and wait. So it is what it is.
Oh, you want me to sit inside my house? Oh, okay. I could find things to do. I always keep telling my kids, I was like, look, I was stationed in Okinawa. I had to do a deployment there when I was in the Corps. We had typhoons come and we got stuck in our room for days at a time where they would drop off MREs. And you guys think it's bad? We get to go to the grocery store and come back. We had MREs for like a week. That sucks.
Yeah. I was on a tiny little island my first 2.5 years with 40 military, 200 people. This was before Netflix and cell phones. So I'm good.
Oh, no, thank you. So let's jump into this. I had you on here. We teased, of course, the small show that you were on that, of course, no one has watched. I was saying earlier how Netflix is just crushing it and has become the new everything, right? I mean, I think more people are watching Netflix than ever before. But so you were in the Navy. So let's talk about what you did in the Navy, number one, and then how you got into acting. And you're doing more than that. Now you're a host of shows. I mean, I went and looked you up on IMDb just because, and I already knew most of the shows you were on because we'll like binge watch NCIS or one of these other, shows that the military's in. And we're like, you were even Hawaii Five-0. We watched a replay of that. And I was like, hey, I know her. It's weird when you see a show and you're like, I know her.
Isn't it? It's weird for me as an actor too.
It's like, hey, I know her. She's not just an actor. She was, and I always tell everybody, she was in the Navy, and everyone's like, we know, Dad. You're just because people like when Rudy Reyes showed up in a video game, I was all proud of myself. I'm like, hey, that's Rudy.
Oh, yeah. Right,
They're like, you're stupid. But anyway, so kind of tell everybody what you did in the Navy and go from there.
So I was in the Navy for 5 years. When I first went in, I worked on the tarmac with jets. Then I moved into aviation logistics. And then towards the end of my tour, I was on the Ship Security Defense Force team on the USS Roosevelt. And I was also the only female on the repair locker fire team. So I had a wonderful time in the Navy. I miss it. I miss it dearly. And then when I got out, I actually got out because I was sick from the anthrax shot. So I was very ill for about 2 years. And then after that, I was trying to kind of rebuild my life. And, you know, a friend of mine had done a commercial, 1 day's work for $400. And at the time I thought that's so much, you know, maybe I could just work a couple days because I still wasn't feeling so well. And that's how I got into acting. I took an acting class and then I booked my first job 2 weeks into the acting class.
Shoo, look at you. Well, you're just like, hey, $400. That's a lot of money.
That's what I thought at the time. I mean, right? National commercials.
That's how people thought
now.
about that $1,200 stimulus they just sent them. They're like, $1,200. I'm like,
yeah,
holy crap.
Yeah.
And they said they wanted that to last 8 weeks.
No, I'm not. That's just a ramen diet. Just ramen.
I'm like, what? We on college diet now? Like that when I was really poor with my boilerplate in the barracks with like mac and cheese and a can of peas. Hey, man.
There sausages.
We go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All that bad food that we ate. But it's funny you mentioned the anthrax shot. I'll bring it up to you. I know also you work with pinup vets, and we're going to get into that. But there was a report that came out. The AP released a report this morning, and I want to discuss it with you. I love vets on so we could talk about it. Yeah. Because everybody always tells us how great the VA is. You know, everybody's like, oh, great. I don't know what you guys are complaining about. It's just
everybody who doesn't go to the VA.
Yeah, it's always the ones that are like, I mean, I hate to bash on the president, but I will on this one. Remember like 7 months ago, he stood up in front of all these veterans, everybody, the VA is great. They have great doctors. We're doing great. And I'm like, you've never been in a VA. You go to Bethesda and you're the president of the United States. Of course, you're treated like gold. Try being Lance Corporal Schmuckatelli, who just got out and he's got PTSD. And you're like, hey, you can come see us in like 6 months. We're cool. But they said, so 1,900 VA healthcare workers who became sick with coronavirus. So that's crazy, right? So you got to think of that. Another 3,600 of the 300,000 have been quarantined and unable to work because of that. You also have, I forget how many deaths there were. But you got to think about that. Here they are taking care of our nation's finest, our warriors, everybody. I mean, you spend some time in the VA with the pinup vets. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was weird that this is going on in our VA. But here's a quote. This is a quote from an actual VA person. We thought we were doing everything right, even reusing these N95 respirators, but we all still ended up getting sick. This is how we treat the folks that protect our freedom. Like, hey, just reuse this mask. You're cool.
It's a federal government. They have more money than anyone else. What's the problem here? They paid what, $300 for a toilet seat lid? Where's the PPE? And honestly, I just went through EMT school. I was in EMR in Colorado, and I just went through EMT school at UCLA. You don't reuse N95s. What is this? I mean, many times you do whatever you have to do because we're low on PPE, but yeah, it's spreading. Are we wondering why it's spreading? What's the issue here?
But these are our veterans. That's kind of where I'm going, and this is why I wanted to have, especially just have a veterans and first responders, just a full day, a full hour of our heroes, right? And that's flat out. I know we hate being called heroes, and we kind of cringe when someone thanks us for our service. It's just because we do it because we love our country. I mean, none of us are like forced to do it at gunpoint. I mean, and yesterday I made a snarky response because we had the great Matt Kuchera. I believe that you've been on Vet Pivot, so you're familiar with Matt. And I was kidding him because I asked him what he was a drill sergeant, and he says, no, we were military instructors. And I'm like, oh God, I forgot the Air Force has a different title. But I mean, all kidding aside, I mean, the VA. So let's talk about what you do. I mean, besides being an incredible mother and wife, and you're on TV, but you also belong to a great organization. And you ladies go into the VA hospitals and you cheer up all of our vets. And I do want to talk about that because you're part of an amazing team that's all veterans. So anybody out there is like, oh, sexist and all this crap. No, these are all our veterans that are helping other veterans, and they're pinup vets from World War II are the coolest thing ever. I mean, my grandfather talked about them until he passed. I mean, these World War II guys love it. That's the greatest generation ever, right? So like, you guys are just honoring the greatest generation. So kind of talk about pinup vets and what you've been doing there and how people can find out more, because it's an amazing organization.
Thank you. So I'm an ambassador for the congressionally recognized award-winning nonprofit Pinups for Vets, and it is mainly female veterans. We have a few wives. We have a few civilian supporters who love the military, but we get together and we go visit veterans in hospitals and VAs and wounded warrior detachments. So it's really wonderful. And I do want to differentiate the care that people get at the VA, because when we go to the VA, we see the nurses and the nursing assistants and the doctors and how they are with the vets in the hospital. And overwhelmingly, people care. It's just more of the bureaucracy that tends to weigh everything down and lead to a decline in patient care. So we go in and we sit with these veterans, and we've personally visited over 12,000 veterans at their bedside. And it is a wonderful, amazing organization. Besides the fact that we are visiting with veterans who may not have had a visitor, that day, that week, that month, we also have a strong camaraderie among the female veterans in the group. Those are some of my sisters, and I love them dearly.
I love your guys' group. I love watching what you guys are doing. It's fun to see. It's great. I know you guys were in the news a few months ago, which seems like forever ago, but it wasn't, when certain VAs in Southern California said you guys weren't allowed in. And I'm like, but they're veterans. How can veterans not visit veterans? You're putting a kibosh on it.
Yeah, it's happened a few times, but I think overwhelmingly, once we go into a VA, we've gotten letters from many VAs saying, you guys are classy, you're modest. I mean, we dress in dresses, yes, but it's colorful, it's modest. Oftentimes civilian visitors show much more skin than we do. So it's definitely just about the aesthetic and not about showing skin. And once we are in the rooms and in the hospitals, they're happy to have us, and they have us come back.
See, and I've talked to a number of World War II guys who have run into, your group down in Southern California, and they're like, they're awesome, it's great. Some of them did mention that some of their friends that are at the VA hadn't ever had visitors. Their loved ones have passed on, and they're the last ones. They're in their 90s, and they stormed the beaches of Iwo Jima, and it made their day. And I think that's important. These old timers that are still around, and we're, as we go on and we all age, so do they, and we're going to start losing those folks, and it's just heartbreaking. It's good that you guys are doing that. So before we go, I know we have to jump to our next guest, but before we go, tell everybody how they could find you and any new projects you have coming up. I know folks, Stranger Things was one thing, but I know you were hosting a show, because you and I were going back and forth about that. Tell folks how they can find you. Any shows you're watching, go ahead, pitch away at this. You're on TV, you're allowed to do that.
So I'll say, for the nonprofit, visit pinupsforvets.com. There's a poster of me in the store for sale, and we also have a calendar that we use to fund our 50-state hospital tour. For me, you can find out more at jennifermarshall.com. I host a show on the CW called Mysteries Decoded, and that is available to stream for free on CW Seed, like a seed you bury in the ground, SEED.com. And if you go on IMDb, you'll see there's lots of reruns, NCIS, Hawaii Five-0. There's movies that I've done, A Dog's Way Home, Stuber, that are now streaming.
See, so I have to ask you, just because we were watching West Wing, and Mark Harmon, of course, he was in West Wing for like 3 episodes, and he's killed. I just ruined it. If you've never seen West Wing, well, you're old, and this is like.
Spoiler.
But right, it's funny. I asked this question as the Marine, because as you know, Mark Harmon in NCIS is a former gunny in the Corps, right? And they all have seem to have prior military. Is it weird being prior military, being around actors who are trying to be prior military?
No, because Mark was so wonderful, and Mark was so appreciative to have veterans on the set. And he was never, let me show you how this is or teach you. He was the consummate gentleman, and it was such a treat getting to work with him. And he's one of my favorite actors and people of all time.
I just had to ask that, just because we were sitting there, you're watching West Week, and I'm tearing the uniforms apart because they never do it right. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to ask Jennifer this question, because I just wonder, because I've been around some SEALs. I went to the Vetties a couple years ago, and I was with 2 SEALs, actually 3 SEALs who are really SEALs, and they were taking a picture with guys who play SEALs on TV. And I was laughing. I was like, this is weird. This is like a man that wants to be a SEAL. So I just had to ask you that question. But anyways,
well, Eric, you'll be happy as a former Marine to know that Mark does all of the Marine Corps noises the best. Yes. So he does all the noises.
The little ers that we do, no matter what, when we're being interviewed, we just
all those weird,
those guttural sounds that we just don't understand why we make them. We still make them in life. So just so everybody knows, I'm going to add all of the links that Jennifer just mentioned will be in our YouTube channel. They'll be below. So just if you're watching this post, just scroll down, and you'll be able to click everything. I encourage you to go buy that poster. And hey, you have nothing to do, so go binge watch a whole bunch of shows, and you're technically supporting a veteran doing it. And go check out your new show on the CW. I know I'm going to do that today. That says I don't have a lot to do today, right? I'm like, hey, I'm just going to go binge watch a show.
I'll take it.
Woohoo! But thank you again for coming on, and I hope you have a great week. We'll have to have you on real soon.
Thank you, Eric.